on the show, but he's not here just yet. I'm not sure why. Actually, I know exactly why. He said he was going to run a real quick errand, and he'll be right back. But he's not here, and I am in the other format of my restream, so it's kind of difficult for me to do drawing at this point in time because it's I'm configured now for chatting with people. So we'll wait for him to come along. In the meantime, we will do all of the other things we normally do. There's Pepper. Pepper's already here. He's turning on the lights and everything. So, real quickly, before Pepper joins, I'll join Pepper in. There's Pepper. How you doing, Pepper? Do I not have you on volume here? What's going on? Can you hear me?
Hold on. I was muted.
Don't mute yourself. It won't help any at all.
I didn't mute me.
You're like, honest, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. I didn't mean to.
Hold on 1 second. What?
It's bacon. I mean, I'll eat it.
Just call him.
Yeah.
Out of the office. No one needs to know your breakfast order.
We need to know your breakfast order.
Sorry.
It's all good.
Yeah. No, the reason why I'm delayed is I had to go pick up a sandwich for someone.
The aforementioned breakfast order.
Yeah. So, what's up, guy?
Hello. It's good to see you.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, on this day of mourning, I guess. Delenn died, so.
Len died. That's really sad.
And me and Bill were actually talking because one of his favorite shows outside of Star Trek is Babylon 5.
Mm-hmm.
And the actress who played Delenn was actually on a kids series for a little bit, for a kids series that was done by Amazon. And her character was killed off in the beginning of the second season because of health reasons that she had. So,
yeah, it's really sad too, because she actually was, I mean, you think about kind of like war artists. You know what I mean? She's from Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
And when she started her career, she would Yugoslavia split into little countries, and she would travel with her troupe between all the warring factions to continue acting and performing. And even though they were going to kill her, and they threatened to kill her entire troupe and yada 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 for crossing the border, and they were calling her defector and all that stuff. So I mean, she lived a rough time, and she was like really cool. And like Joe Straczynski had said that a lot of what he had done when he had written about the Minbari, civil wars and all the fighting that was going on, he researched the Yugoslavia Civil War so that he could give her something to work with where she could make a statement, where she could talk about what she had done. And so when you watch a lot of the stuff that Delenn's doing during the Minbari Wars and stuff like that, she's channeling a lot. And so, but I agree. The thing that really kills me about Babylon 5 is the same thing that I thought was so cool about Babylon 5 back in 1993 is now the reason why it's so hard to watch. Its CG was so cutting edge, but now I can render that here on this computer while doing a show with you at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we rewatched for a little bit. We were rewatching it, and I was just like, "Wow, 3D is really bad." compared to today. Um, and you know, we've done like theories of like what would happen if they like try to reboot the show, like just for the updated graphics alone.
Yeah.
Um, but like no one wants to touch that show. No one wants to reboot it. No one wants to do anything. The cast and everything did a really good job on it. So
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that sucks the most about Babylon 5 is it looks ancient and dated, but the stories are really good. And the things that are going on are really exceptional.
yeah,
Good morning,
Rick.
Brent. We're
Yeah.
talking about Babylon 5 because of Dylan.
I
So
mean, the one thing that Bill would absolutely love to do, and I think a lot of people would just remaster the film and and update the graphics for sure.
Yeah.
Like just basically take all the stuff that no humans are involved in, where they're showing the 3D graphics, and just
ships.
update those and the ships and everything. Someone has to have those models somewhere.
Oh, we've all built those models over and
Yeah.
over and over. I know I have a Star Fury on my hard drive.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
and I have both of your versions of the Star Fury, either the long-nosed version and the short-nosed version. So, I mean, but I totally, and it's better looking when rendered in just DAZ 3D, you know?
yeah, it's, but at the same time, like, I have to remind myself, I'm like, when I first watched this show, I was a teenager. I thought it was, great then, and now as an adult, the story is probably the best part for me.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is that, like, you have to look at it in which way works. I think part of it was that the interiors were shot slightly cheesier to make it fit the exteriors.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you update the exteriors so that they are really, really, really good, well, after the game, they were saying they were talking about Babylon 5 for a long time.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think that part of it is that you'd have to buff up the interiors somehow.
I mean, honestly, I'll take it as if someone tried to remaster or redo the graphics for Deep Space Nine. The Deep Space Nine has the same issue. The interior shots were kind of done so that it looked like the exterior would match.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone like redid Deep Space Nine station and the interior was not modified, that's basically what it would be. It was like the hull looks different.
We end up with that with, of course, the original series of Star Trek. I saw somebody who did a fascinating rotoscope where they just literally cut Kirk and Spock and McCoy out of a scene in the bridge and then rendered a 3D bridge that looked more like, like Discovery era, much more modern, and then just stuck them back in. And it looked really good. But I mean, I can't imagine how much time that took for them to do that. Although, technology gets better with every generation. And I mean, deep fakes are amazing to me. I find it funny that that's evolving so fast that they're deep faking things that, like they're deep faking Data in Picard to make him look more like he did in the TV series. And it looks better than the makeup department and the CG department did at the time. And so
I still find it funny that he still had to lose weight for that just small part.
Yeah. Well, it's a thing.
Well, I mean, when you're an android or a synthetic life form in the Star Trek universe, you're not supposed to gain weight. So,
it is true.
I mean, he even stated that like the best thing since the show ended was like not having to worry about that as often.
Sure. Well, that makes sense. Worrying about weight sucks.
I know. I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, me too. I'm not doing it right now, or I am doing it, or I'm not doing it. Depends on the week.
I've actually lost 8 pounds over 2 weeks so far.
That's not bad. That's
No.
not bad at all. I am still struggling over about 2 kilos. That's about 4.4 pounds. So I go up and down these 2 kilos.
And I agree with Brent. If they rebooted, it would have to be set for a later in time variation. Maybe the child of Delenn.
Yeah,
Like
maybe.
that's the only character that I think would be kind of cool to see as like an adult now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was an interesting. Babylon 5 was a good series. It was a very, very good series, and it's kind of a bummer that it's dated, but it's still a very, very good series.
Yeah, but
we do what we do.
Yeah.
So, okay. So anyway, we were gonna talk a little bit about stuff.
Stiff.
Stuff.
I got all my commissions done, so I can finally start on the stuff that's not constantly being paid for.
Right. Where I am is still on that path, trying to get all my commissions out.
Yeah. So
They did try that. That didn't go over well.
yeah, that wasn't the
Crusade.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing a series about the Rangers. The Rangers were cool, and
Yeah.
I had a lot of high hopes for Crusade, but man, Crusade was brutal.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't like that series. A lot of people don't even know that series exists.
It's because it only existed for like 12 episodes or something ridiculous.
Yeah, back when we had 22 to 24 episodes per season.
Yeah. I didn't even really like the ships in Crusades, which is kind of a bummer. Because I really liked what I liked about like the ships in Babylon 5 were everything was so diverse. The Minbari ships were like straight up, but they look like fish.
Yeah.
And you know, the Centauri ships were rounded. And I mean, it was really cool. And the Narn ships were square and blocky. And, you know, there was like an aesthetic to every ship. And I really liked that.
And I think they probably did that to make sure that there was distinct differences between the different places.
Sure.
That everyone was coming from. And I think, like, the one thing with Star Trek and with a couple of other series that are very similar to Star Trek is that the ships almost seem interchangeable at times with different factions, because some factions actually like steal from others type deal. Whereas Babylon 5, like, they were very distinct, and if you tried to steal one of their ships, you had to know someone who had to be able to operate it, because not everyone could operate it. And
yeah, the shadow ships that were just all fingers.
Yeah, pretty much.
The Vorlon ships, which had the huge sails behind them.
Yeah, and it's just like, like I think if it was developed a little bit better, if they did redo it, and it was like the next generation was still on Babylon 5, and it was like the new captain was being appointed was the child of Delenn that, you know, was born on Babylon 5. And, you know,
yeah, White Stars were pretty.
Yes.
I think I'm missing White Stars out of my collection of Micro Machines because I don't think they made a White Star for the Micro Machines. I don't know. Let's see.
You can probably, well, you have that fancy smanchy 3D printer now, so if you,
that's what I was thinking, is I might have to print my White Stars at this point. I can't get the container out.
Well, what would be interesting is if they actually had Ranger operations based out of Babylon 5. and when they did that update, and the Rangers basically were helping with the defense of something coming. I don't know. That's just a theory. Like if someone wants to reboot it, there's a theory. That's what you can do. Yeah.
It's interesting. So my best buddy and I moved in together, like when I first got out of high school, in a little teeny apartment, and we called that Greenwood because of an anime. It was called Cocoa Greenwood, and we stayed like moving together and stuff like that, gathering people until we had like the final one was this huge house and everything, and it was. And we kept numbering them: G1, G2, G3, etc. Well, of course, the last one was G5, and so I had made the joke when we moved there that this is the last of the Greenwood stations, and it really was the last of the Greenwood stations. After that, I went to college, and then I went to Japan, and then I married my wife, and now we live here, and we call this house Applewood because it's got an apple tree in the back. And my best bud lives about 1.5 miles that way. So we're still not that far away. We still actually, during COVID, we've been going back and forth between the two houses and making sure that everybody's got all the stuff. But, and thank you, Brent. I assume that that's a white star to be printed, which I will have to go do because I think a white star needs to join my Babylon 5 ships. But yeah, I mean, it's, because I've got a Rocinante downstairs that I've been working on and painting it in Martian colors from the Expanse. So I mean, I think a small white star seems to be a thing that should be done. So we will do the white star.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's something bringing us kind of back to topic of what we've been doing.
Yep.
One of the things that I've been trying to do is do the same thing with my ships. So all of the ships in the Unity have the distinctive hammerhead on the front, which makes it you go, oh, that's a Unity ship. It's got that hammerhead. And it's got a logic behind it. It needs 2 gravity projectors to project the black hole that the ship falls into for transport, so that you can move around in real space, the impulse drive, if you will. So whenever I made the bad guys, I'm doing them with a half dish. So it's like the Star Trek ships that's got a half saucer on the front. And that's so that you can put the gravity generators extended out, but it doesn't look like the hammerhead that you're getting from the front of. So they will be distinctive. So you can see the good guy ships and the bad guy ships.
Yeah.
So I've been doing the same thing, trying to kind of give a set of visual rules, because like Star Trek has visual rules behind their ships. It has to be a saucer and nacelles, and that's like the visual rules of Star Trek. So hi, Bill, walking behind the curtain. That's all right. I've seen Kai a couple of times right over here too. So we've got people that shouldn't be in the picture getting in the picture.
Well, so long as Bill's computer is not being filmed,
visual,
I think we're good.
Same with the kid. Same with the kiddo. So long as we don't see what he's working on, we're fine.
So,
although I'm trying to keep the kiddo off the air as much as possible.
Well, yeah, because the moment that you have a kid go onto the screen, you now have the risk of being demonetized on.
There's all kinds of negatives to having a kid on screen.
There is. Yeah,
whereas sticking your husband on screen just makes us go, "Oop, we can't see his computer," and that's about the world's worst that has to happen.
Yeah.
But putting a kid on screen changes everything. The rules get bad and stuff. So,
well,
anyway,
I mean, hey, those rules are put in place because they want to protect children from.
I don't complain.
Stuff, and I'm not complaining. What I do find interesting and funny about those is they have them in place, but yet a lot of parents that I know of that are like really looking at things like don't even realize what their kids are watching at the time.
Yeah, well, and that's hard. It's really hard. I mean, unless you are literally sitting there with the kid 24/7, looking over the kid's shoulder, it's really hard to police what they're watching.
I mean, I think my parents did a fairly good job, but also at the same time, I can't really say anything. I watched Die Hard at 7, so.
Well, and I think all of us had that one thing.
Oh no! I saw all the Steven Seagal movies pretty
Well,
much.
that's what I mean.
all
It's
the
like
time, too.
Troy talks all the time about seeing Jaws at 6, and yeah, I saw Poltergeist at, I think I was 8 or 9 when Poltergeist came out, and I was like, I don't even know what in the world I was thinking watching Poltergeist. That's just, I'm still like, why did I watch Poltergeist? One of my favorite my mom's stories, my mom, was that when we first got HBO, right at the very beginning of the 80s, HBO was still new.
Yeah.
The Exorcist was on, and I was watching The Exorcist, and my mom walked in and went, "You know what? You can watch this, but I'm not." And she walked out, and I was like, "I'm such a big boy." And then it was the split pea soup scene, and I'm like, "Nope." My eyes got like really big. I was like, "Yikes! I'm not even messing with this one."
It was.
No, it was the crucifix scene. It was the crucifix scene.
Yeah.
And then I was like, because I think I was 10, maybe 11, and
yeah.
oh my goodness. And I was like, yeah, nope, I'm not watching this. And so anytime it was actually really well done, because then from that point forward, my mom would just say, "Hey, you can watch this, but I'm not." And I'm like, click. Because at that point I was like, but she's not going to watch it, I'm not getting into this mess.
Like I don't remember when the is it the character Carol Ann, I can't remember the name for the life of me now.
You mean from Exorcist or from Poltergeist?
Poltergeist, yes, that's what it is.
The little girl.
Yeah. So my mom, in her infinite wisdom, and my dad, in his infinite wisdom, decided that my sister was going to choose a movie for us to watch.
Oh no!
Our cousins, it was actually being aired on TV, so they thought, "Oh, okay, so it's on TV. Don't worry about it." Turned out to be the Poltergeist, and it was a marathon, so it was both 1 and 2 at the time. Now, mind you, I'm like maybe 5, 6 years old, so it's this is like just me like as a very weird kid, and I'm like sitting there, I'm watching it, and I just remember the medium lady, Carol Ann, all this other stuff. And my sister kept like going, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you fine? Are you okay? You're not scared?" And I'm like, "Why are we watching this?" And she's like,
that meant that you were luckily too young to grasp all of it. I think that's really, because I mean, there's like I remember watching a few things with my kid and going, "This is a little rough for my kid," and he's like, just kind of going along eating the candy. This is interesting. But then later on, when I would talk to him as an older kid, and he doesn't remember bits and pieces of it, and it just didn't mean anything to him. I think part of what makes Poltergeist such a good movie is that a lot of it is psychological.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it's not. That stupid clown still haunts me in my dreams, but
well, and that's the like one thing that I always got me is like when I was a kid, like when I was very, very young and I was exposed to that stuff and like basically material that was very much over my age, I just sat there and blah blah blah, just went along and stuff like that. Yeah. So as a teenager, my mom decided to watch some anime movies that I had purchased myself with my own earnings, and she's like, "Why are you not disturbed at this?" And my aunt at the time also said, like, "It worries me that you're not bothered by these scenes."
Right.
And I'm just like, I don't know what you mean. And of course, the movie that they're watching with me is the anime movie of Tekken.
Oh yeah.
And if
I was
anyone,
afraid you were going to say Urotsuki Doji, and I was going to be like, really?
no.
I watched that
Luckily,
once, and I was like, no, I don't need to see that ever again.
yeah, my mom tried to sit down and watch Evangelion with me, and let's just say,
Hello, Richard.
hello, Richard. Let's just say, she was like, "What is this all based off of?" And when I told her that it's based off of the Book of Revelations from the Bible, she was like, "This is not Christian Bible," and I'm like, "Sure, okay."
Yeah, you do you, boo.
Okay.
I mean, because there comes a point in time where you're like, well, we can't help you on this one.
Yeah, no, I can't. And she's like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "The angels that are coming down, they're angels. They're
And they all have the same names. I mean, they're named after the Bible names. I mean,
yeah,
it's if you look into it's all biblical. And
yeah."
like
And
the
and that,
three computers, the Magi, they're the three wise men that came to see. I mean, it's like all of it is religious,
yeah,
heavy religious overtone.
oh yeah. I mean, down to even down to like Shinji's caretaker. She's always wearing like a cross, like
Mhm.
right in the middle of her chest and everything. And you have the
Yeah.
scientists who don't believe in any form of religion that's in there that are working for them anyways, even though they don't believe the same thing. They're just in there for the
Just
science.
working on it. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have like basically you have characters that are treated like a Mary figure, which is basically
It's Eve.
all weird and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And
Which is
but
Ray.
yeah, Ray. I mean, I like the character Ray.
Mhm.
I like what they do with her on occasion, and
Mhm.
I like the fact that after she died the first time, she basically
Spoilers.
Oh, sorry. If you haven't seen it, it's an anime that has been around for a very long time, since the early '90s. So if you haven't seen it by now, trust me, you should probably see it. It's on Netflix.
So I was just talking to Jan Scott Fraser, who's a buddy of mine, um, and apparently she was working for Production IG at the end of that run, and they had run out of money. And so episode 25 and episode 26 are just weird.
Yeah.
But they're not just weird. They're like they were literally rewriting up until about 4 hours prior to airtime, and they had the voice actors in the studio redubbing things right on target and or right at production time. And they used the least amount of cells in any TV series ever. It was something like 700 cells or something like that, which is just a ridiculously low number.
Yeah.
Because they just didn't have the money to pay for the artist to do the work, and it didn't make any sense. And it was like such a weird ending. And all of us who've ever seen the end of Evangelion there, we all agree that it didn't make any sense. And they
No.
were doing such a good thing in the very beginning, and they had
Yeah.
such a good thing going, but they ran out of money, which is, as Jan was saying, is pretty normal for Gainax. That's what they always did. They'd come up with brilliant ideas, spend all of their money in the first 4 or 5 episodes, and then have to figure out how to get the remainder of the 20 episodes out of the series through the door.
Mhm.
And so, but it was fascinating talking to Jan a little bit about this, because she was saying that she was downstairs working at that point in time on something else that Production IG was working on, when like the writer came down, and it was, it was late at night. The show had just aired. Well, thank you, Richard. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard.
But the show had just aired, and the writer came down, and he just went over to some dark corner and cried. And she just didn't know what to do, so she just made herself as small as possible. trying to finish her work because she was the only one there.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and what I find interesting is the true ending of the series. Like when someone was like talking to me about it when I right after I first saw it, someone's like, "Well, this is what really happened," blah blah blah, and I'm like, "Based off of what? Because that was not the series." And she's like, "Well, didn't you keep watching the video? The movie it was right after I gave you." And I'm like, because she was the one that lent me the tapes and everything to watch Evangelion. She didn't tell me that there was a movie on the tape, and it's that I guess the movies that actually give the more better understanding of what happened at the end of the TV series.
Sometimes
So
we wonder, Richard, what we are
yeah,
doing.
we do. We got off on a tangent. So I mean,
This is usually an artist check-in for Friday. We usually check in between Pepper and I. You know, I should put your graphic up here. So where's Pepper's graphic? There's Pepper's graphic. Okay.
Yeah.
Usually, Pepper and I both check in with each other on the status of our stories and what we're doing and where we're going, and make plans for next week, and then we'll get together on Friday. Sometimes other folks will get in here and they'll make plans with us, and I'll write them all down. And then the idea is kind of hold our feet to the fire, because otherwise we don't finish our work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just happy that my paid commissions. I'm going to be sending them. I'm going to be mailing them out today after the show. So, if you haven't seen any on my Instagram, or if you're not following me yet or anything like that, so this is what I was working for some.
Nope. I want this one to be the big one. I want this one to be the big one. Why can't I make? Oh, I don't know. Here, wait. There we go.
There we go.
That's what I was looking for. That's the button.
Yeah. So we have Chessie, which is, I guess, the United States
version of
the Loch Ness Monster.
Yep. And
we have the Fresno Nightcrawlers.
I was going to make some tooth joke about those because they look like teeth, walking teeth.
Basically, like the way that they're described, they're like white with red eyes or black eyes, depending on the character description. But they glow and they look like the bottom half of people. So,
which is funny. I just liked it. I was like, I kind of want to, have ones like that, except with like the actual cuspids on top, so that they got little, like walking molars.
Then I got a Wendigo and cheering for his favorite team with his caster. So in this game, humans that work with cryptids are known as casters. They have their own abilities themselves, but they also team up with cryptids. So that's that. So this one was a special one. So before I show it, everyone's heard of a frog on a dog, on a hog, on a log, in a bog, right? One of those like really weird long things. So I did the games version. So I have the Loveland Frogman, the Hellhound of Kentucky, Gumbaroo. I can't pronounce this guy's name, but he like hugs trees, and then they're in a bog.
I think we call those hippies.
I can't pronounce it. I know it starts with like a R-U, but I have no idea on how to pronounce it.
Are you a hippie? I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
If you hug trees, you're a hippie.
Yeah, and then the one that I did recently, which I'm very proud of, is the Pink Mothman.
That's very cool.
Yeah,
I like that one.
So apparently, there is a type of moth that that is pink and yellow, and it is referred as the pink moth. And I got the pleasure of doing that as a variant. So yeah.
I say this, by the way, all the hippie jokes with love, because my wife is a hippie. And so just so that we're all clear on this one, all hippie jokes are fair game. My wife is a hippie.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie, I like avocado toast occasionally. So
yeah. Actually, it's so funny because avocado apparently is like a thing, but I actually didn't eat avocado before I married her, and now I'm like, ooh, we're having avocado for dinner. Oh, that's lovely.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm like, oh well.
Yeah.
I'm a Southern boy. I was raised Southern, so like for me, it's meat and potatoes all the time, and she comes in and she's like, you have meat at every meal, and I'm like, you don't.
Yeah. So
She's like, no.
yeah. My mom had a huge fight with our neighbor for the longest time. They had an avocado tree that was like directly on the landline. So half of it would come over to our side, and my mom hated the tree and like forced them to cut it down, but they never poisoned the root. So what happened was they cut down the tree, then they put their own fence up in between our yards right over the tree, but it sprouted up towards our yard, and because it was like on the line, we couldn't cut it down again. But there would be avocados on it, and so the ones on our side, we would pull them, but we never knew what to do with them. So like we would pull them and never eat them.
Oh
But
man,
like, we grew the pits all the time,
right.
But my mom would never allow us to like stick them in the ground and let them finish growing. They just, after the science project was done, like they were garbage. My mom didn't want us to plant them. Because I mean, her house used to be her house before it was built on the land that it is on used to be a pineapple plantation for Dole.
Okay.
So
before they decided to move to Hawaii.
No, before they decided to shut down operation in Florida.
Yeah, so I mean, they moved everything to Hawaii.
Yeah.
On the Big Island.
Yeah.
No, it's on Oahu. It's not on the Big Island. It's on Oahu. I actually visited drove by it.
Yeah.
My best bud lived in Honolulu, and like the best burger place was on the north side of the island, so I had to go over the Saddle Road. I was over there taking care of his daughter while they went to Japan, because he was like, somebody's gonna watch the kid, and I'm like, I'll watch the kid. And he's like, yep, free ticket to Hawaii. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, my mom still grows pineapple.
Right. So, well, it makes sense. If it's already there,
yeah,
it makes sense.
She still grows it. I think she's up to like 2 or 3 plants now. It's the one plant she can't kill. And she gets pineapple every year.
Right.
She gets one every year.
Which works. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, and that's kind of cool. I mean, actually, really, pineapple and avocado, and I like all of the above, all of which I didn't eat before I met my wife. So there's that.
Yeah, my mom also had aloe in the backyard, and so we used to
sunburns were.
Yeah, we actually in spring we'd go out, cut a bunch of the stalks off. Dethorn, cut them in half, wrap them in plastic. So when summer came around, we'd take them out of the freezer and just right on the burn. It was the best. It makes your skin peel, but it was the best.
It's better than being there just dying of burniness.
Trust me, I've had that a few times too.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, my grandma had aloe in her backyard, and that was the same thing. It was a good thing too, because boy, I just look at the sun wrong and I sunburn.
I get sun poisoning, so yeah. People think that I'm like joking. Like, sun poisoning is no joke. It actually makes you feel like you have the flu, and you're not. You don't have the flu. It's
no. I've been down that road too a couple of times. I went to Galveston, and it was always Galveston too. I'd go out to Galveston and I'd get so sunburned. Ah, well. And we once again digressed.
Yes.
Wandered right off the topic.
Oh yes, we're definitely on point already.
Yep. Brent's saying he's a meatitarian. I think I'm with Brent on this one. I'm definitely a carnivore. My wife's gotten me down to like small amounts of chicken in the food. but that's like the best she can get out of me. You know, she's just like, here's a salad. I'm like, yeah. It's like, I can't do just a salad.
Well, so I do a vegan Caesar dressing, and I do a vegan. I do a lot of like vegetarian or vegan friendly salad dressings,
Sure. Uh-huh.
but I do a vegan Caesar dressing because I'm allergic to eggs and I'm allergic to fish, so I can't have regular normal Caesar dressing. But what I'll do is I will cook chicken and put it into the dressing,
Yeah.
and for Bill, because he doesn't like Caesar salad by itself.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'll put chicken in it and he'll eat it.
I feel like anytime I have like a Caesar salad or whatever by itself, it just feels like I snacked.
Yeah.
You know, I've got to have some meat, otherwise I didn't actually eat anything. I just had a snack.
Yeah, but that's also the southern part of things. It's getting like, because I went vegan for 2 years and it's like, yeah, I had to like break that habit of like, because it's very much ingrained to you when you're eating like southern style. It's like you don't think no meat at a meal. What?
Mm-hmm.
And
It
like,
doesn't seem right.
and people are like, oh, that's not every southerner, and I'm like, most of the southern households I grew up near all did that in North Carolina, Georgia,
Yeah.
South Carolina. Predominantly is where I most saw it. Florida was a little bit iffy because I had a lot of other cultures around me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, like, was segueing back to what the show is all about, like drawing food makes me hungry as well.
So kind of going on to what we were doing here. This last week, obviously, I've been doing some great work with cell work, which is one of the things that I've been working on, trying to kind of make cells, or at least simulate cells, because it's like it's really hard to do actual cells anymore because the technology is slowly disappearing from our universe. So I did that on Watercolor Wednesday. You and I were working together, and I did cell work there. I also did a watercolor of one of the races in my story, and I've got some really interesting like downloaded books that I not downloaded. They're not books. They're sort of worksheets for doing world building and things like that. And I have a great worksheet set that is, what does your race breathe, or how does it breathe, and does it use gills, or does it use lungs, or does it use some other form of respiration, and all of these like questions to really flesh it out. And I've gone through each one of the alien races and done this, and I really wanted to get pictures to go with it so that I can have all of this deep dive work that I've done have a picture to sort of go with. So I've been pretty pleased with that picture that I did to go with this. Now I've got to do all the rest of the races. There are 5 other races that are not humans, and it's actually kind of an interesting thing. I really have been trying to avoid the bumpy forehead function. I really want to, as a challenge, as a writer, I want to be able to make truly alien creatures accessible, because one of the reasons that we have bumpy forehead aliens on every show is a belief that goes literally back to the dawn of TV and movies, that if it's a weird alien creature, nobody will ever be able to associate with it or anything like that. But then I look at like R2D2. People love R2D2. Well, but he's not even remotely human shaped. He's a trash can with legs. You know what I mean? And people still love him, and he doesn't even have 2 arms, and he doesn't even have 2 legs. He's got 3 legs and no arms. And you know what I mean? And it's like, meh. So I try to I try to make it so that it's got manipulators to control the environment, because that's a belief that many anthropologists have, that intelligence comes from some sort of ability to manipulate the environment, and has a head of some sort so you can look at it. A trash can on wheels. Yes.
Yeah.
So I've been going through, and all 5 of my races are very distinctly, uniquely different. There's only one race that's somewhat close to a race on Earth. It's a quadruped of some sort with fur. So it's sort of like a cat or a dog or something like that here. But everything else, like the Jacine, looks like a jellyfish of some sort with armor plates and things like that. So there's kind of that. And the Volmer don't even look like, they kind of look like stingrays in a way, I guess. But and I've got one that's just a big amoeba. It can grow. It looks like a human, but only by choice, because it grows 2 arms and 2 legs and walks around just to make everybody feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to. It just does that. So I've been doing that. The other thing that I've been doing is prepping up the scripts for writing. I have all 53 stories laid out for the first set of stories, which will last me years. It'll take me years to go through all of this. But I have all 53 stories, and I've been now applying Pixar's story spine to it. I don't know if you're familiar with Pixar's story spine.
I've heard of it. I haven't actually gotten to delve into it.
Right. Well, it's got, you go in, it's got a little questionnaire, and it starts with number 1, once upon a time. Number 2, every day. Number 3, until one day. And then act 2 is number 4, because of that. Number 5, because of that. Number 6, because of that. Right?
Yeah.
Then you hit the crisis, and then it's number 7 until finally number 8, and ever since then. So essentially what you do is you fill in all of those until your story congeals on it. And it's really nice because it gives you a very nice smooth launch to the middle, to the end, and it gives everything that sort of fits together. Well, I did a step up on that. I applied the story spine to all 53 stories.
Oh.
So that now you have inciting stuff that's building up through the first few episodes that sort of build into a larger narrative, so that the whole narrative all snaps together. I have been wanting to do that for a while. I've known that there's a big story, and then each episode is small stories that further the big story by 5% or 2% or 3%, And I've been trying to tie all those together, and I finally got all that tied together. And in doing so, ended up very, very clearly seeing how Chang is now. I had a great discussion with my aforementioned best bud, because he's a lieutenant colonel. And I was like, okay, so I have an officer, and I need to make her be a drunken fool. And he's like, well, she'll get drummed out. I'm like, okay, so how far can I push before she gets drummed out of the service? And so we worked together for 2 hours, just trying to get it to logically fit so that we could have an officer who's crashed out and not quite crashed out enough to get kicked out or lose her command. Both of those are very difficult. But crashed out enough that we've got a good arc for her to build back up from the very beginning. So that took some work. And so that was because there are a lot of shows that just are like, well, we'll just have the captain be drunk on duty all the time. And you're like, yeah, that doesn't happen. And so I was like, but I need her to be rough enough that people are like, whoa, when they see her, whoa. So she's got some place to build off of. Mm-hmm. So we we wrote her whole story down and got it all figured out, and like even down to little details, like she was in command of a corvette. Then the life-changing event happened, and because of the nature of things, she had ended up with a shoreside assignment.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way that the Navy works, she would end up going back into a ship command, but she's supposed to escalate up to a destroyer. But because of where she is, she doesn't escalate up. She stays with the corvette command, and now she's in the what did he call it? There's a term for it, like recuperative or something like that assignment. So in other words, she's on provision. And if she really screws up this assignment, then she's out. And that's the way it goes. But she can't go anywhere at the end of this cycle of assignment with a kitty wake. She either has to fix her internal problems, then she can go up to a destroyer, or she's out. The Navy will just drum her out.
Okay.
And it worked. It worked really well to give her a good start. Her crew doesn't know that, but her first officer does. And her first officer is sort of the babysitter. You know, okay, keep her in line. Your job is to keep her in line. Keep far off the wagon, you know. But it made for, I've been having a hard time trying to get that first scene. That very first scene. Where do you make the impact of where this character is starting? And I finally kind of came up with that literally minutes before this show, you know, because everything's always a shower thought. And I was taking my shower, you know, just before the show here. And I was like, oh, I now know how to start this. I know perfectly how to start it. I got it. So that's good, because I needed to get into that episode pretty good here now that I've got all of these story spines. I've got the spine in for episode 1, and now I need to figure out how everything that needs to happen in episode 1 fits on this spine. So there we go. That's my report for the week. Actually, there's been a lot going on in Bellatrix Rising. So we've had a lot of things. The idea behind the cell painting thing has worked well after an extraordinarily frustrating weekend. I spent most of the weekend trying to get paints to stick to transparency, and it just did not work. It didn't want to work at all. But I got it finally to settle in, and everything looks good now. And really the end result was that I needed to stop using inkjet transparencies and start using laser jet transparencies, because the inkjet transparencies, apparently I just end up, the paints crack when they dry. So they'll start to dry and they crack and pull apart, and they take the ink behind them with it, which made a whole bunch of cells that are just effectively a horror show, because her face cracks in the middle. And it's like, meh, and you're like, ah. It's pretty
You know what you use those for?
For
You want B-roll.
yeah, right.
It's like all of a sudden it's like da 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 da.
So anyway, that's where I am on Bellatrix Rising.
Yeah.
We are still moving towards I know where my 3 acts are in the story, as far as like the overwriting arc. Yeah, what if series. I know where those 3 acts are now, settling them into the story, to the big arc and things like that. And it's kind of, everything's really working well. I am fully hearing all the characters in my head, which is good. That's been one of the biggest reasons why Witches of Flame hasn't gone anywhere, is because I couldn't hear them. They weren't talking to me.
Oh.
And so they will at some point, but I need more, something needs to be more germane in their world to make them talk to me. They were all, you know, I could see what they would theoretically say, but I couldn't hear them actually saying anything. So
And I just want to be clear, these are different than the normal voices in your head, right?
Right, exactly. The normal voices in my head just tell me to kill people. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's just weird. Anyway,
It's fine.
so
No, it sounds good. Sounds good. It sounds like you've done a lot more than I have. But actually, I did sit down. I laid out the. I have this one comic that I've been going on and off on called Pumpkinhead, The Tale of Pumpkin Headington. I looked back and just reread. I added pages to it to make it make more sense. So I've just been going through to make sure that I'm getting cohesion with certain things. I added like an introduction before the kids in the story actually go to the local high school that they're supposed to go to.
right.
And and it's kind of like one of those public, but they still wear uniform type schools.
Hmm.
Um,
It's what happens in Japan all the time.
yeah. However, it's based in like a fictitious place in America. Magic's real, and death can have children. Um, Essentially, that's what my main character is. The son of a Grim Reaper.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Son of a Grim Reaper.
Yeah. And his mom and his mother is a nurse, but his grandmother, his mother's mother, is the town witch. So
There you go. Huh.
yeah, so you have that as well, and so yeah, there's like a lot of different things that seem like it's convoluted, but I don't really touch on the whole world. It's just the beginning part of this character, like introducing the world type deal. But essentially, if once I actually get it done, like I realize like I'm gonna have to have like a warning plastered right on the inside cover. Please be advised, this may be indicting some past traumas if you're not over them type moment. Which
Wow.
is something that people have been like, because if I try to put this like on one of those free read websites where like I do this, and if the story is received well and I start doing it more, I'm gonna have to put that label on every single page of the story.
I don't know about every single page, boy. I mean, just in the cover.
Every single time I upload, I will have to put the disclaimer right at the top.
I was gonna say maybe like, I mean, a lot of these pages have like the book series page.
Yeah.
So you could put it at the header of that, and then each page underneath it would always be in that header up there.
Well, most of them, if you have anything that's like deemed traumatizing or like bringing up old trauma, they have you do like a disclaimer that's not small. You have to do it very big and have space in between. I guess the best example for this would be right now, Lore of Olympus on Webtoon, which has gotten some very big media things going on with it. They talk about Persephone and her story, but basically a modern twist to it, and different deities are involved, like Apollo, Hades, all of
Yeah,
that.
if Zeus is ever involved, there's a lot of.
Oh yes, Zeus is definitely involved. But there's times where they're talking about certain subjects, and it's involving Hera, it's involving Persephone and stuff like that, and it's about their pasts. And every single time they have those storylines, it will say like right at the top. But I think the difference between what I'm talking about and what that is that one's like a paid, like this person gets paid to do this on Webtoons, versus I wouldn't be getting paid, so I have to put it on there. Yeah, I don't get paid exactly like the way that other people do it off. So,
Sure. And what was the name of that comic again? I'm writing it down.
Lore of Olympus. It's on Webtoons. You can't miss it. Persephone is a pink character, and Hades is blue. Um,
Aw.
Zeus is purple. Hera is yellow. Demeter is green. They have nymphs. Nymphs. They have.
I
They
totally
have
heard mints, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh, that's nice of them. Mints. I
yeah,
love
no,
mints.
nymphs. They actually show a shot of Aphrodite's home.
Oh, cool.
Uh, they do bring Cupid in, as well as his future wife is in there too.
Yeah.
Um,
There's like a lot of things where we have to think about the stories that we want to tell, because I've talked about this a number of times as well, is, like the stories we want to tell have different things to them that people, especially like as we've grown older, we've gotten into this wanting to tell stories that aren't kosher, that aren't the best, I
I like doing things that can actually be collated with either my own life or basically that's realistic in my world of stuff that I've either witnessed or I've had to counsel other people or help console other people of stuff that they've gone through, stuff like that. But like when I say that whatever pumpkin basically is the main character, and whatever pumpkin goes through, that is actually semi autobiographical for myself.
mm-hmm,
Because what happens to him in the course of the story is basically something I had to fear
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
as a teenager.
Sure.
So it's dealing with that. And I think modernly, like in today's world, like when people sit there and I say that, and now there's a whole different type of kid that has that fear,
Yeah.
and that wasn't like me. They're completely different than what I was like as a teenager, but
Yep.
they have the same fear.
Right.
So I think, and it's basically I'm writing to that.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Yeah. I mean, and even if it's not autobiographical, there are things in all of these series that we want to talk about that aren't PC.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm wondering I'm going to put a disclaimer in the beginning of Bellatrix Rising that says there could be, nudity in this. Just get over it. Deep breath. Just get over it.
I think one person that I actually saw this, and I thought this was a clever idea, but it's probably massively environmentally, it's probably not the best. They printed out their comic, and their comic did involve like nudity and stuff like that, but they did go to a lot of events where there was children.
Mm-hmm.
So they had their entire individual comic was shrink wrapped.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I can go mentally. I don't think I could do that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd shrink wrap everything. I've thought about this when I did the nudity in Tamerlane. I just had two versions.
Yeah.
There was the version that has the nudity and then the version that doesn't have nudity, and you pick, and I just redrew it. A lot of the stuff that Cochrane did in Tamerlane has moved over to Bellatrix Rising, and and that's one of those things. We're just going to continue on from there, but it's part of the characters. It all depends. I always feel like some things are just really weirdly stupid when it's like I had a scene in the old Tamerlane comics where one of the characters was transported from where she was being effectively set fire to, and her clothes were burned off. So it was, or at least the top part of her body, the clothes were burned off. And it seemed really strange to put a bra on that. But I did, for people who are a little sensitive. And I'm like, okay. But it was still a little weird, and it looked strange, and it looked out of place. But I know that people would be so much more focused on her boobs if they, than they would have. And it's like, okay. But there were two versions of that, depending on whether you could handle it or not.
Yeah. So I've had this discussion with some of the people that I know over in Europe, and it seems like it's an American thing.
It's very much an American thing. Europeans don't even blink when they read my comics. They don't even think about it.
Yeah, it's super weird because like I grew up and I was told, don't be ashamed of your body. Don't really mind. Oh, that's just artwork. Blah blah blah. Like it doesn't matter. It's just that. And if it was like some sort of thing that was like an old relic from like, paganistic Italy or something like that, my mom or one of my relatives would be like, "Oh, well, that's paganism. That's basically what it was. That's what they did. They had things like that, And so I thought it was like no big deal. And then it wasn't until I got like around like high school and college that I was making people uncomfortable.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is like, I get it and I understand and I can appreciate it. But the truth of the matter is, to me, I feel like it's kind of silly. And we all have our hills that we want to die on.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's one of my pet peeves, and I'm going to put it in the comics. The little things like when I designed out the kitty wake, she's got one group communal shower for the entire crew. Everybody showers in there.
Yeah.
And the captain has her own bathtub, but everybody else is in this communal shower, which makes logical sense. It was one of the few things I liked about Starship Troopers, was because I was like, see, this is what it would really be like, and it's like, I get it. And I understand that was one of the things that Starship Troopers was ridiculed for, but I still think it was like really clever and well done. And I appreciate it. And I thought it was neat. But it was still kind of like, okay, so you're going to, okay, whatever. So those, it's one of those two hills that I'll die on. The other one's feminism. I will die on that hill too. Everybody has their flag that they will fly under, and that's the flag that I fly under, and that's the hill I'll die on. And it doesn't mean I don't think the other things that we need to all talk about are not important. Like I really do believe in equality between, I don't believe it's any of our business where you sleep at night and whom you sleep with. I don't think that's any of our business. And so, but it's not the flag that I fly, it's not the hill I'm going to die on. I know that I have buddies. I'm looking at buddies right now. I have buddies who are more than willing to die on that hill for the same cause. And so we'll all die on these hills.
I think what I'm in like this really weird predicament where when I am writing a story, my main characters, almost all of them, I have a tendency to make them asexual. Because
that's interesting.
I personally, when I write about teenagers, I
don't want to get into it.
I don't want to get into the interpersonal romances of teens, which is what Treehouse Witch does explore slightly, because like that one, there's more than one teenager. There's more than enough drama that I can do with the side characters, which could wrap up the main character.
Sure.
But what I find interesting is I noticed this lately that like even Pumpkin, he's asexual.
Mm-hmm.
He's not attracted to men. He's not attracted to women. He's not. He's just there.
Just there.
And it's funny because it's like, yeah, no,
That's not a hill you want to die on.
It's the thing is like everyone and I think we've talked about this before, where a lot of people do expect me to draw, like if I do a kids thing where my main character will be a gay teen or a lesbian teen or you know,
But it's
something
not the
like
hill you want to
that.
die on.
It's not. It's usually something I completely don't even go towards at all. And by some people's accounts, that would mean that I was negating part of myself with these characters, and it's like, no, not quite.
Well, and I think that's the thing is I think that people discount what Muse will do for us.
Yeah.
Like our Muse tells us to do a certain thing. I mean, I'm not female, but my Muse seems to think that that's the hill I need to die on. You know what I mean? And it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. Nothing being an artist is not a logical thing. You know what I mean? Nothing's logical about it. Your Muse doesn't think that that's a hill you need to die on. And you know, it's one of those things. And as far as like relationships and things like that, I rolled dice whenever. I mean, I've got a character generator which gives, you know, like a percentage chance for everything based on whatever is our current scientific belief. I gave a little bit more, but I still, you know, but I rolled dice and I ended up with one crew member who is attracted to the same sex, and that's it. You know, just because I rolled the dice, but it doesn't really matter because I don't have any relationships that are going on at this point in time with those characters anyway. So it's there, but it doesn't matter. And of course, my main character, she's divorced and has lost a kid. She's not interested in a relationship at all, period. And that's actually part of her overriding arc, is that she's not interested in a relationship.
Yeah, and I think because Bill and I had been talking about this, like because he says that he's not good at the interpersonalness of inner, like talking back and forth, and that's like I think that's why when we worked together on the campfire stories, it was well because like I kind of gave feedback on the emotional side,
kind of push through that.
But also at the same time, like we have an editor whom our editor Megan, she's been my one of my closest friends, or one of my friends since like she was in second grade, I was in third.
Always makes me think whenever you think about people who've been friends that long with you, they're like they'll see you in their head as those little people.
Well, it's weird because like
saying that
she's a writer
on that bill.
Yeah, she's a writer herself, and the funny thing is I always like do where like one parent is like always away. They may not be dead, but they're always like away, and they come in and out, and the other parent's always like kind of there, but not really there. And like my main characters always have like a grandparent as a parent. Now that reflects on my childhood, for sure. Like that's how I grew up. Now, she has had a healthy relationship with both of her parents, and she always kills off the parents of her main character.
That's an interesting, but again, it's back to your muse. You just can't really. There's no operating logic to what makes your muse do a thing.
Right, and that's basically what it is. Is it's like this very weird thing. Is I'll talk to other people who do creating, and they'll say the same thing. Like this is what, like this is something that I have in my mind, or I'll read something of one of my friends and I'll read it and I'll go, this doesn't sound like you at all, but it's good. You know, if they're like, oh, I want to try something different, and I'm like, okay, well, it's a good different if it's good. If it's a bad different, I give them every single thing that, you know, they've asked me to review.
Right. Well, I think that's a lot of, like I said, you know, it's the hill you want to die on. What's the hill you want to die on? That's the hill you want to die on, you know. And it's, it all makes some sense, and I kind of get it. And it's interesting how we all have these different aspects.
Mhm.
Because I was just thinking about all of my characters all are the same like trope.
Yeah.
And that was what made Cochrane sort of different in my worldview that I'm actually passing on to Chang, is that, before, all of the characters that I ever made were dark and mysterious and deadly good at, whatever was their thing, or yada yada yada. And sort of creating sort of like Angel from the Buffy Angel series in a
Yeah.
female form. It's sort of that kind of trope. And even today, like my role playing game characters all seem to come out that same style. But Cochrane was flippant. She was more like Mal from Firefly. And that was a completely radical shift in like the way characters operated for me, because bouncing off of a captain like that was a much more interesting way. And now this newer version is somewhere between Hawkeye Pierce and Mal, and it's like, wow, we're really getting out there on, characters that are just wild and woolly and bizarre, but interesting. And what I'm noticing is that breaking from that hasn't made my muse shut down, which is what's happened before. If I violate some rule somewhere that I don't even understand, but there are rules that obviously pass down from some, the muse sitting on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Then I can't hear their voices anymore. That's, I just hear the voices that tell me to kill people. That's all. But I mean, that's something I find fascinating, is now we've got, it's still okay. It's still legal for her to be now Mal mixed with Hawkeye Pierce from MASH. That's still a legal character. But I had to, of course, now go check how far can you Hawkeye Pierce before they drum you out of the military, before they drum you out of the center chair, So we had to figure that out. How much Mal versus Hawkeye Pierce can we get to here? So, but I mean, that's, and I think that's interesting. But now Chang's voice is even different than Cochrane's voice, even though they're technically the same character. And I'm finding that interesting. So, but I don't know. I mean, it's like we have these tropes and we work with the tropes, and then all of a sudden one day the muse is like, that's it. You're turning your trope around, and you're no longer allowed to use this trope anymore. You're like,
I think
know this character.
Yeah, I think my main trope is like main characters or characters that are always involved in some sort of magic. Because magic or fantasy type stuff is always like it has always been very appealing to me.
Right. Well, it's hard sci-fi space opera for me. I mean, that's where I've always been. This is no different. This is going to be a space opera, just like all the others.
Yeah.
So,
is it? But the question is it a space soap opera or just a regular space opera?
I don't think there's a lot of soap in it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very dirty opera. So it's a space dirty opera.
Because the reason why I say that is I classify the Star Trek universe as a soap opera.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I find soap operas generally are, Bob loves Jane and Jane loves Tim, and Tim hates Bob, and Bob and Tim have to fight. That kind of stuff.
But Bob and Tim suddenly are now brothers.
Right. And Bob died, but he's been resurrected. So, it's
and then here comes long lost sister Karen, but
you're like,
he's her real brother, and they don't know until the next episode, and then they find their long lost father, who's the villain of them all.
Right, and I feel like that's more what a soap opera is, and
that's what I classify Star Wars as.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Oh yeah, Star Wars. I could see that. And Who Shot JR?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, Dallas is a classic example of that. I don't want to do that. I want I've got every episode that's set up so far is a hard look at some concept or design where it which puts the characters in a moral dilemma that they have to work their way out of. And that's the methodology of my series. So though there will be, Chang fights with her sister or whatever is going on, that can happen and does happen. And even the overarching moral is sort of a interpersonal moral, not a like external moral.
Right.
But I feel like the characters change from episode to episode, but it's not bad. Like it's who shot JR. So
Greedo shot JR
and shot first.
Yes.
Right. So there's that. So I don't know. I mean, I want to put enough interesting character stuff that you're hooked into it, But I'm not going to have, the first officer's in love with the captain and the captain's in love with the helmsman. The helmsman's in love with, it's like, whoa. None of that crap.
Yeah.
I do have a romance built into it that is in there, but it's just pretty straightforward romance with no complications. And I don't want to do, that's another thing. I don't want to do the sitcom, Bob didn't tell Martha that he was coming home late because of work. And so Martha thinks that Bob's cheating on her and then decides to go out and cheat on Bob because as a routine, you know what I mean? Like, no, just talk, people.
Yeah.
You people just need to talk to each other.
Well, and Bill's like over here going, this is why I can't do interpersonal relationships.
Right? Because you end up with trying to figure out whether Bob and Martha are, oh my God. And you're like,
Will everyone?
I think it's because I'm an over logical person.
Yeah.
And I can't write in drama where I'm like, why wouldn't they just talk it out? Like, why does this drama need to exist? And then that's my conflict of not being able to write such a thing.
I totally understand. And my thing is, just like the aliens in my story, I'm going to challenge that trope. I'm gonna totally challenge it. I go ahead and do that. In my stories, the drama is going to be because they landed on Planet X and the Gorgwops are trying to shoot them, and there's your drama. I don't need to worry about whether Bob and Martha are sleeping with each other or sleeping with other people, or I don't need that drama.
I think that's why, in a lot of ways, I think that's why I didn't really like Enterprise with Scott Bakula.
Because there was a lot of interpersonal drama.
It was like set in their first space exploration type setting, and it's like, no. It's the reason why it didn't work is for me is you had one character that was tossed between two guys on the show, and like some realities of the future had her with the captain, other realities had her with the other guy,
the engineer.
So,
yeah, and that's another thing. If you're a cute girl, you have to be hooked up with some guy, and it's like, really.
Yeah.
I mean, my captain's not hooked up with anybody.
Yeah, but they also made her a Vulcan.
Yep. Oh, well, that just makes her extra attractive, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. Give her a pair of elf ears. We're good.
And like I said, I rolled the dice is what I did. I just rolled the dice as to whether any of these characters had a relationship based on the average number of people who have relationships in the US. Yeah. And then just rolled 10-siders on every character. And some of them have relationships and some of them don't. And some of them, the relationships are a passing statement. Bob says hi. Oh, hi, Bob. Tell him that the whatever, blah, blah, blah. Picard was hooked up with Crusher.
The doc, yeah.
Yeah.
But then they end up getting a divorce, which
That's interesting.
yeah, I
I'm
never
wondering. We're still trying to figure out whether they're going to bring back,
Beverly.
Beverly into Picard. That could be fascinating and
I mean,
intriguing.
if they brought William Crusher in, Beverly can't be that far from being behind.
Huh?
If they brought William Crusher,
Oh, you mean William Riker,
no,
or you mean Will Wheaton?
Will Wheaton.
Oh,
Yes,
okay. So
I'm dyslexia names.
Wesley. Yes, Wesley.
Wesley Crusher. If
They haven't brought him in yet. He just does the ready room.
right, and then well, William Riker was in Picard for
Riker was in Picard, but Crusher wasn't in Picard yet. That we know. I mean, we've still got season 2 rolling in, so I do know that Guinan's coming back for season 2, and that's going to be cool. That was actually kind of fun. He asked Whoopi Goldberg to join the show on her show live, and I was like,
and then they talked about her role and how it was written and how it was created, and that Gene Roddenberry was her role was the last one Gene Roddenberry came up with personally.
Yeah, and she's the wise man. She plays that trope that we all sort of need an assembly of a story. She plays the trope of the wise man, and I love that.
Yeah.
Because she's enigmatic and she's weird and interesting, and she's got this long history, and then she gets to play like some really funny parts. I like in Time's Arrow 1 and 2, she's hysterical about that whole thing.
Well, and what's interesting with the character is and this is like, I guess like, I know Bill doesn't like time travel and time related things.
I'm tired of it after a while. It seems like every series has to have the token, we went back to 19 whatever it is today.
And basically Bill's opinion is it ruins every single story. You should never do it because it always ruins the story. It always throws everything off. But Guinan is this one character who basically sits there. If something happens time-wise, she's like, something's wrong.
Right. Well, she was there in yesterday's Enterprise saying that very thing. This isn't right.
Yeah. And she's like, and she'll go and she'll just basically go, nope, this isn't right. This is not supposed to be on how things are right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every series seems to have it. Although I'm pleased that Picard didn't. Lower Decks, of course, just makes fun of it because Lower Decks. And Discovery ish.
Yeah.
But Discovery's time travel was viable. It made sense. And they went a different direction with it, literally and figuratively.
I think the best example of like what would happen if
give it time.
Yeah. The sci-fi series that I think I like the most that have done time travel situation was Eureka, in which case it kind of gave a logical explanation of why the characters would not say that they went back in time and came back to the present.
Well, and it depends. Like Quantum Leap is fine.
Yeah.
Because its entire premise was time travel. That was totally okay.
And technically, it's not really time travel. He was leaping throughout time into different people's bodies.
Right, but what I'm saying is, it's okay if that's your premise. Right. But I agree with Brent. It's a cop out if that's not your premise. Star Trek did it because they had these sets in the back lot that they could use.
Yeah.
And they were like, how many times can we use the back lot set, which we can use pretty much effectively for free? How many times can we use that and get away with it? Well, it's rigged for the 1960s right now, so we'll do a 1960s flashback time travel episode.
Yeah.
Oh, now it's rigged for the 1940s. Well, we'll do a 1940s flashback episode because it was cheap.
We're filming of a hey, we're filming of a spaghetti western. Do you want to do a spaghetti western?
Right. And the best part about that is when looked at it through those eyes, it's actually really clever every time you see the original series go back in time, because they are screwing around with whatever was available on the lot,
Yeah.
And so that's in a production side looking down, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then you end up with weird things like the episode where they went back to Tombstone and were doing all of but the sets were half built.
Yeah.
And that one's also wild because then they ended up actually building the sets on Planet Hell, which is what they usually call their soundstage that they use for making planets. So, yeah. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, if you think about a piece of the action in the original series, they didn't go back in time. It's just that the race of people that they discovered had decided to lock themselves in the 1920s Chicago era, and so they did.
Yeah.
And
they basically didn't want to advance their technology anymore.
And so you've got the Iosians just sitting there in 1920s Earth, and it's not time travel episode, but they get to still use the back lot. And they're all excited about this. They're like, I mean, that's even cleverer. It's like, ooh, we still get to use the back lot.
Yeah. I think what's more interesting, I think, in the story when it comes to time travel and stuff is when they do it and it seems logically done, not emotionally. If it's logically explained why these characters are reacting the way that they are. I think time travel in general for the Star Trek series versus like a kind of other storytellings is they try not to interfere unless it's going to affect the outcome of their present.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then and always every single time you hear of time travel, here's the other trope that you actually end up, and this is like the cop out trope for me as well, and this is what I don't like about the Eureka time travel skip,
Right.
is we're now in an alternate universe. That is like a cop out, but I also know that Eureka had done that because they weren't sure if they were going to get another season after season 4.
Right.
Because originally that series was on Sci-Fi. Normally you go 3 seasons and you don't have any more. And they were on their 4th season and they weren't sure if they were going to get the 5th, so they were trying to wrap everything up. Then it was announced that they were going to get another season, and so they kind of like toned everything back and then did the Hail Mary or jumping the shark in the 5th season.
Right.
But like that always seems to come up. It's like it's definitely, in my opinion, it's like a cop out. It's like, oh, the writers just wanted to change up the story some to see what would happen to the show. But also at the same time, if you're reading a book and it's a part of a series and they do that, then like it's almost as if the author of a series, not on television but a book series, is trying to listen to what the fans want. Mm-hmm. And so they do it to kind of appease fans, but then they piss other fans off.
Right.
So it's like it's kind of like the whole Jar Jar Binks, like, hey, if he was a Darth Sith like leader person, that would have been amazing to me, and I would have loved the character even more.
I agree.
Instead, he died.
Yeah, well, there's that.
Spoiler.
Yeah. So we've rabbit holed a lot on this particular show, mm-hmm. And we've only got a few more minutes before lunch. So I was going to real quickly say, what are your plans for this week?
Get back to writing. I have some sketching for thumbnails for for another thing that I have to do, involving someone who already wrote something, and I've been very, very, very much apologetic about the fact that I haven't gotten back to it. And then I have to do more on a couple of other projects that I need to get done. Basically, I have a list and I have times. So, like when I wake up in the morning, I spend an hour on one thing, spend an hour on another, until I get to the writing at the end of my day. In which case, writing, it's a half an hour per the project of the writing.
Okay.
So
you actually have it very regimented, which is cool.
Well, I'm going to try to do the regiment.
You're like, I
my ADHD
have it regimented.
And I'm going to hope that my ADD doesn't make me go, oh, shiny.
Right? But wouldn't it be fun to do this?
I just found them. Oh, I should do something real quick, you know? But no, also tomorrow is my last adoption class that I need to take before we're
legal
placed. So, so yeah, there's that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
So what are your plans this week? I mean, I know that you've worked a lot on the story.
Yeah, that's where we're breaking into it. I'm trying very, very hard not to continue world building because we sort of made a promise. But yeah, I mean, now that I've got story spines in, I'm hoping to get all of the story spines written out. It's only 2 or 3 sentences for each one of these little questions. But each one of the scripts now is not a script, really. It's just a bunch of, in this episode, you got to make sure you say this, and you got to make sure you do this, and this is where the ship is on the map, and it's like a bunch of like data points that just need to be thrown together into this. Now I want to get the story spine in for each episode. I already kind of know where each one of these episodes is going, and so I need to just quantify it, settle it in. I don't need to have all of them written to start episode 1, but I am a little concerned about, since I do have a long arc, I want to make sure that all of them are at least pinned down a little, if not, so not sewn together. I get that, but at least pinned in so that they don't wander off.
Yeah.
So that by the middle of my, when I'm on like the 4th or 5th episode of this comic, I haven't just made the entire ending a mess. That's what happened with the last Tamerlane episode. It wasn't pinned in enough, and I just kept writing into circles, and I ultimately wrote myself into a corner, and then I couldn't get out. And that was rough. I could get out, but the only way I could get out was Deus Ex Machina or some horrible cliche, And so it was like, ugh, I don't like that at all, and that's what stopped me from writing more Tamerlane. Was that. So the other thing I'm going to have to think about is I still have a Tamerlane page on Facebook, and I've been thinking about renaming it to Bellatrix Rising. Because I'm noticing people are renaming pages out there. And I think that if I were to rename it to Bellatrix Rising with a post saying, hey, Bellatrix Rising is Tamerlane, it's just no longer in the Star Trek universe. I did Orville and pulled all of the characters out and then rebuilt it. So that it's my own IP so that we can sell the books and stuff like that, and sell anything from the books and that kind of stuff. So kind of wanted to do that. So that's been something I've been thinking about for a long time. Because there's a lot of people who follow Tamerlane. But, are like, I haven't posted in Tamerlane in a year or 2. And I'm like, I feel like those people should at least know what's going on. So...
yeah,
these are things I'm kind of thinking of doing. But I'm hoping that very soon I can go on ahead and start actually putting pages out. I'm moving closer and closer to pages actually being put down.
Yeah.
And that's so yeah, my goal for next week is story spines. It's on the minimum, everybody has a story spine. On the maximum, they're all filled out. Right. So last night I just started going through and copying the story spine into the scripts. And I noticed that I don't even have a script for some of these episodes. They're not even in the folder. So I've got a specific folder, obviously, on my computer for each episode. And as I build it, ultimately, it'll go from a script to a full, to the ash can to the full comic. But yeah, some of these folders don't even have anything in them. They're empty. And I'm like, this isn't good. So I got to fix that.
Yeah, that is part of the schedule that's coming up this week is actually trying to plan out to do either an ash can or just basically do it where I can start the foundation for some type of money fundraising type thing too with it.
Sorry.
No,
My kid's doing, I'm hungry. And I'm like, I get that.
okay. Well, we're about to finish.
We're almost finished. I said, wait 5 more minutes.
So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try to plan everything out. So while I'm doing all this, to get to a point where it looks like I can submit stuff to get funding.
Brent is absolutely correct. So Brent's saying that I need to finish Elio's 7 and 8. None of this is all the stuff that I'm doing at night, Brent. I do this at night after I put the kid to bed. So don't worry. We're going to finish Airship 27 will be still on my top list for the next 2 weeks. Hopefully when we clear that, I can go on ahead and move to Fred's project for the day shows and then clear him out. Once those 2 are out, all of the large, super large commission projects will be out. I've already kind of asked what Earth Towel wants from me, and I think they don't need anything from me anymore at this moment. The idea is to bring my commissions to a close so that I can start new commissions without having 16 of them all over the place and then losing track of where my commissions are. Which is what's been happening is I have so many commissions on the table that I'd end up losing track of them, and then I'd make clients mad. And I don't want to do that. So I'm going to clear everything down, then have commission slots. So that's the business goal.
I have to do some work on the one thing I'm doing for them. So
yeah, so I mean that's my interim goal. So I've got like my goal for Bellatrix Rising, and then I've got my professional goal. And the professional goal was to clear out all of those things until at the beginning of 2021, so that I'm at a clean slate. That's this board right here is my work board right there. So
yeah, I need to redo my board.
Yep. So that's what this guy right here is the what jobs are left, and you can see that there's still some writing up there. So those jobs are still on the board, and the idea is to get that board cleared out as soon as possible. I feel like I've still got lots of large commission pieces for Fred, but those will be done. Then, so by March, I should be ready to open for new commissions and things like that. And I'm trying not to take on any new commissions until all commissions are clear.
Cool.
But I don't lose them, because I don't want to lose them. That seems rough. So.
Yep, I just went through that myself, so I understand.
Okay, it's lunchtime, guys. It's time for us to go to lunch.
Yep.
So
we're ending a little bit early just so that we can.
Yep, we're leaving early because the kiddo goes to lunch at 11:45. So that's when the school decides to do it, and so I'm ending a little early unless I'm on a roll. And we've just been rambling. So.
Trust me, the show is not organized. So,
but it's never organized, and that is absolutely okay. We are creatives, and I don't think creatives are allowed to be organized. I think it's against some rules somewhere. I think there's a law against it. Gotta be.
Completely agree. All right.
Okay.
Well, take care, everyone.
And I'll see you on Wednesday, my friend.
See you on Wednesday.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.